a DJ for a long time. Got it. And this is music is near and dear to my heart. You know, growing up, it was the way that I sensed the world. And so that's a little bit about my background and what led me to what I'd like to talk about today. Got a little delay on my advancing my slides, so. Let's try that. Okay, we'll do it another way. Here at Atlantic Center for the Arts, I lead Soundwalks for the public. I've been leading these since 2016. They're free and open to everyone. And what I really love about the process is really just introducing people to the act of listening to their environment. It's something that, you know, when, especially in our visually centered world, we're not as attuned to that sense. So it's just a way for me to bring this into the public conversation here. One example of a sound walk that I've led in Central Florida, in Orlando at the Manillo Art Museum. So it's open to everybody for free, and all ages come to this. What's lovely is I think it's very marketable because people are like, ooh, a sound walk, what's that? Another example of our sound walks at Canaveral National Seashore, which is about 10 minutes away. I have also led these sound walks at the Atlanta Science Festival and in partnership with Smoky Mountains National Park. What I typically do is talk about them and promote them as silent contemplative walks that are, like I said, really for all ages and also all levels of accessibility. And I feature a different location and different public lands at every single walk. And when I get there, usually listen to the land and let it tell me what my listening prompt is, my listening invitation is for the day for everyone. So in 2020, Atlantic Center for the Arts received a grant from the National Park Service Natural Sounds and Night Skies Division to create a soundscape program for youth in the blind community. And we call this Young Sound Seekers. There's actually an excursion on Saturday if you'd like to meet them. I've really found that by watching these high school kids, they share and support each other, and they've been building confidence by being together and listening in a wild environment. I have seen them slowly begin to accept that they're a part of this community and that they can contribute to it. They build podcasts with some of the field recordings and do narration. Getting to know them, I've slowly began to accept that I was a part of a community with sensory impairment. So over the last 20 years, I have progressively lost high frequency hearing, and I live with tinnitus, which is ringing in the ears or the head. And as a musician, I really felt shameful to admit that, especially to other musicians. That I was losing certain frequencies, and I'm still learning how to explain this, these nuances, and to not lose credibility for being a musician, and especially leading soundwalks. So before I talk about developing a soundwalk for the deaf community, we need to understand what that means. What we're looking at right now is an audiology diagram that on your x-axis is frequency, as you can see, and then on the y-axis looking at the loudness and the decibel. Now this little, what looks like a banana, they call that the speech banana, and that's where conversation is. So when people are losing hearing in certain frequencies and they're unable mainly to not hear speech in all frequencies. So that's always the issue of it. This is my hearing. This is what my audiogram looks like. So as you can see, those XY axes, still frequency, X-axis, loudness and decibel. So my low frequency hearing is perfect, no problem there. High frequency hearing is slowly moving. Let me look in that direction. So little by little, again, this has been progressive over 20 years. Of course, I was a DJ and spent many nights in live music events, and I was also predisposed to hearing loss from chronic ear infections that I had as a child. So really there's many factors to this, and it's more common than you think. 1 in 4 adults in the US have some sort of hearing loss, whether it's environmental, genetic, or from aging. So it's really unique to the individual. There is being completely deaf, which is, not hearing any sounds, but being able to feel it with your body. And then there's hard of hearing, which is what I am. And it's unique, and these remedies are prescription. So if you think of them like glasses, hearing aids, which I do wear 2, 1 on each ear, they are unique to me. I can't put my hearing aids on someone else and they'll be able to, hear in certain ways. It's, like I said, a prescription. So if I take off my glasses, and those that wear glasses can understand this also, you still see that things are there. It's just blurry. And that's how hearing is. I still hear that there's sound happening, but clarity is not there. One of the other remedies in addition to hearing aids are cochlear implants, which is basically going straight into the audio nerve. And it's just a very outpatient procedure that can be done. And that will really heighten the speech banana, that conversational level. Although the frequency ranges that you're hearing are much less. It's condensed to just that speech banana. So I fear getting a cochlear implant as a musician, because I know that the low frequency that I have that's perfect will disappear. So I'm kind of avoiding that at the moment. Most people that are hard of hearing, or some that are deaf as well, rely on lip reading. It's just to fill in the blanks. It's not necessarily that I understand every single thing you're saying by just watching your mouth, but it's filling in what I'm missing. With my hearing aids, I hear pretty much 80%, when I'm tested with my hearing aids in. Another way to work with being hard of hearing or in the deaf community is sign language. American Sign Language, British Sign Language, these acronyms here, Black American Sign Language, and Plains Indian Sign Language is a really interesting one that I've just started learning about, which is actually very influential for American Sign Language. So these sensitivities really can also become a factor with conditions such as autism or audio processing disorder and other cognitive challenges such as dementia. I could go into more depth, but I only have so much time. So what do we do in this case? It's what I find is we try to use our strengths. We have our 5 senses: sight, touch, hearing, smell, taste. And if hearing is not a strong part of the equation, those other senses are heightened. It seems pretty obvious, but it happens gradually over time that, I'll start to be much more attentive to the vibrations of what's happening. And as I start to hone in on that, smells get more prominent. So it's a really interesting process that some of it is conscious, that I'm trying to learn how to navigate in those senses, but then some of it is just naturally occurring. So by using our strengths, we get to actually think about how to build a soundwalk for the deaf community. It's a sensory experience, right? Listening to sound. It happens with our ears, but it also happens with our bodies in general. We find this other way of learning things. There's a deeper connection. I'm going to speed up a little bit. We bring in the affect emotions and empathy. And I find a reciprocity when you're connecting with all those other senses to this more than human world and everything around us in the human world. So best practices, really respect the human, it's please don't pity us. It's just how it is. We've had to go through our own challenges to understand this and deal with it and navigate it, but just respect this as a human, enunciate and use a normal speed of speech. And please don't yell because we still have those sensitivities. And just find that common ground, what unites us. Be open to new ways of experiencing sound. I typically, when I'll lead a sound walk for the deaf community, I will hire an ASL interpreter. That's really important to let them know that, we care. And what I really love about inclusion is that working with the deaf community to create the walk. So even though I feel like I'm a part of the deaf community now, I still want to find those that are truly deaf. And they have a great motto, which is nothing for us without us. And that can apply to almost any kinds of inclusion. So, sound walk. One thing I have done is to use a balloon and be able to give everyone a balloon, have them blow it up, put their fingers on the balloon, and then have them hum or speak into the balloon. And they can feel those vibrations through their fingers. And that immediately focuses what they're doing. You can also have them place their hands on objects around. Obviously, different materials have a different resonance and conductivity, and then focus on those vibrations. Another idea is to use your sight and watch how wind moves over the water or moves through the trees or any object, and then be able to kind of use the imagination to understand how sound vibrations move. Another idea is to have them create a sound map. We've all done this for the most part, and I find it's a really cool tool to stick with. Again, use your strengths, use the senses that are there, in this case, visual. And I think that's it. I'm glad I made my time, but if you have any questions, I am here all week. I work here. This is my contact information for after the conference, but I am always happy to talk about this to anyone. And I guess it's up to you whether we have time for questions or not. Enunciate, speak clearly. Yes. Usually I'll do the walk first and, use those previous ideas for getting them to understand the vibrations around them. And then we'll sit down and actually map it out. Yeah, obviously there's different ways to do a sound map. I like the one where you kind of put yourself in the middle as an X, and then you're kind of mapping what you saw, or draw the trail, draw the path that you've been on, and then note things that occurred. Yeah, and leave it open to any sort of means of communication, if they want to make a key and actually put symbols for things, or if they actually want to draw a bird that they maybe saw a butterfly's wings and wondered, I wonder what that sounds like. I can kind of imagine the vibrations. Thank you for asking that. Yeah. So Saturday is not a sound walk, but we will be with the Young Sound Seekers. So they are a wonderful group of about 20 high school age students from the Conklin Davis Center for Visually Impaired in Daytona Beach. And we do an excursion with them typically in the National Park System once a month. So this is our monthly excursion. And what I'd like to do is have a mentoring session. Whoever comes down there, pair you up with a student and go field record and you can learn from them and they can learn from you. And I think it's a really great opportunity with, you know, having so many professional recordists, but also sound artists here to have them interact with our kids. I'm excited for it. Not yet. I would like to explore that. I think there's a lot of room for movement in a sound walk. This picture right here is with Oolite. They are a group of artists from Miami, and they come up to Atlantic Center for the Arts at least once a year and do a residency for about a week. And as you can see, this woman in the middle is, she's really getting into the sound walk. Everybody's silent right here. This was at the very end of the walk. They're not deaf, but they were tuned in and they were really using their senses. And she was like, oh, this is amazing. And she's a dancer and, you know, was kind of just doing some interpretive moves. So I think there's a lot of space for using the body and having kind of that somatic storytelling element, using a word from Deirdre Harrison. Thank you for that, Claude. He says I should repeat the question, which I did not do. In the future, we'll note that. Okay, so one of my favorites is called the Sub Pack. It is a bass bin you wear on your body. It's basically for audio producers, but they have, and it usually just sits in a chair, but they have it as a backpack version, and it puts all the sub frequencies basically into your body straight away. I've seen Moog synthesizers. They had an exhibition in LA where they had a bed that had like, you know, all sorts of speakers underneath, and the whole bed kind of vibrated when you were playing the Moog. It was really cool. There's some really cool stuff happening and some really neat influencers to follow on social media as well that are doing some cool stuff. Yeah, I believe that this multi-sensory experience is becoming more into our toolkit of using to be able to teach anything, not just sound. Thank you so much.